For those of you wondering what the page builder inside of HighLevel looks like and how it functions and what it's capable of doing, this tutorial and walkthrough is for you. Now, as we get started with this, I want to give you just a very brief amount of background here. I'm going to call this the page builder. HighLevel calls it the funnel and website builder. I'm going to use the term synonymously. I don't think it really matters. The purpose of this video is to give you an idea of the basic features, the general feel and experience of using the website page builder, what it's capable of doing, but from the right perspective. I'm not an amazing designer. I'm just your average person building web pages, building landing pages and funnels. So what I'm able to do in the tool is probably close to what you'll be able to do in the tool after just getting a little bit familiar with it. So I'm gonna get myself out of the way here so that I'm not blocking any of the interface. Okay, so to get started, this is what a blank screen looks like in the page builder. You can see here when I hover my mouse over this little dotted line section that goes full width on my page, I have this option to add something. I can click on this and it will open up this tray on the left, which can also be opened and closed by clicking this plus sign in the upper left-hand corner for adding elements. Let's go over the basics of the builder. The builder works on a form of hierarchy. Thankfully, the hierarchy is kind of represented by the order here. You have sections, which allow you to create full width sections, wide, medium, small. These are basically just presets that you can adjust. And these sections, for example, if I add the full width section to the page here, you can see now it's a green color. And inside of this section, I can adjust things like giving it a name so that that's how it appears inside of my layers window. Let's change this and let's call this my demo section. So now here in my layer section, it's really easy to find things that are within layers or different sections of the page. You have a few options like making it sticky, allowing rows to take up the entire width. If I click on that, you may notice that this little dotted area in the center, hard to see on the video, but if I toggle this on and off, you can see how in here it's jumping back and forth between full width and then this locked in width, which is wide. I can add a background color to this, so if I made it my brand blue, the entire section turns blue. If you're familiar with something like Thrive Page Builder, Thrive Architect, which I've talked about on my channel over the years, or Spectra, the section is very similar to a container in something like Spectra, or in something like Thrive, it would be like a background section or also a container. It can also have a lot of the same functionality. Now you can also set the background media type to an image or to a video, and this is where we would adjust the width of this section, changing it between those preset options. Now under the Styles tab, so this is another thing to think about when you're looking at the page builder in HighLevel, all of the contextual changes for what you've selected on the page are in this right-hand menu. So I can change tabs here at the top to swap between the general settings for the section that I have selected and the styles settings for the section I've selected. And then depending on what you've selected, there may be different tabs here at the top. The styles section has a lot of really important information. I can set the margin and padding of this section here. I can give it a border, a shadow, and I can choose whether it shows up on desktop or mobile. And very important to advanced customization, I can give it its own CSS class, as well as have access to the CSS selector. This gets more advanced, but you may find in the future that you're going to be using this quite a bit. Okay, so that is the general gist of selecting something and editing options on the right-hand side, but let's keep going with the hierarchy of our page elements. I'll go ahead and open up my tray or click the add button here. And we just talked about sections. Let's talk about rows. Rows go inside of sections. You cannot have a row by itself outside of a section. In fact, let me show you what happens if I try to drag on this 2-column row onto my page, not within my section that's existing, but below it. In doing so, you'll notice something happened here. It actually created a brand new section. And that's because, like I said, rows must be inside of sections. Now I want you to notice the colors of the elements on our screen here. Green, like I showed you first, is the section. Blue is for rows. If I open up my element tray here, you can see I have sections, rows, and elements. Rows are going to be blue. If I click into one of these columns inside of a row, remember I added on a 2-column row, these rows take on this almost lavender, this really light purple, almost pink color. Let's call it purple for my own eyes here. So we have the purple column, the blue row, and the green section. Each of them, when selected, has different options here on the right-hand side that are going to help you design different aspects of the page and build the architecture behind your design. A relatively new feature to HighLevel's a page builder is the ability to nest your rows. So if I add in another row, let's say I want to do another 2-column row, I can take a 2-column row and nest it within another row. I've created a 2-column layout in the right column of my 2-column row. This actually wasn't possible just a couple weeks ago before recording this. This is something that's relatively brand new, and it's really nice because it gives you a lot more control over the way something looks. What I like about the rows here and the columns inside of HighLevel is this ability. If I hover my mouse between them, I don't even have to do that, I just hover over them in general, you can see this little circle appears right here. This gives me the ability to drag and adjust the width of the column inside of the row. And depending on which column I've selected here, for example, this one right here, you can kind of see it's taller, it's longer. This is the main 2-column layout. I can adjust this all the way over, and it's going to affect everything inside of it. If I drag the columns for the 2 columns I put in the right column, you can see here, even if I drag it all the way over, it stops when it meets the parent container. This is just very clean. It's not as finicky or glitchy as a lot of the WordPress ones that I've dealt with in the past. I think they did a very good job with this. Now I'm going to keep this on the basic level, more introductory to the features, so I don't want to go too deep. But something I do want to draw your attention to is when I'm inside of a column on the right-hand side under General, the column layout gives you some pretty powerful options. For example, your content alignment, your content spacing, and your content position. I hope in the future that they represent these similar to how Spectra represents theirs in WordPress, with a visual to see like the containers aligned to the top, etc. Because right now you do have to drop these down and see horizontal, vertical, and you know that's pretty self-explanatory. But content spacing, some people don't understand space around, space evenly, and space between. You'd have to add the elements to see. And then content position, start, and center. Some people don't understand the difference between the content start and the content end. Just things I've come across as I've worked with people using these different builders. These options here under column layout, you're going to use fairly often in your designs. But now let's move on to talking about elements. Elements are the things that we add into our different containers. So we have the option here. We can add an element directly into the container that we're hovering over, or we can open up our add elements tray, go to our elements, and we can browse them. They're broken up into categories: text, of course, form, blog, media, custom, countdown, blocks, etc. There's actually a pretty good number of these core elements, and you can do most things with them that you can do in a builder, something like Spectra or Thrive Architect on the WordPress side. So let's say that I wanted to add in a headline. So I'll drag my headline in here and I'll put it inside of my column. And let's say then I wanted to add in a paragraph, and maybe I'll also want to add in a subheadline between the two. Something that you may have seen there is how fast and snappy this feels. Unlike a lot of the WordPress editors that I've used that get bogged down and really quickly seem to have memory leaks inside of Chrome, I haven't had that problem yet with HighLevel. Might just be coincidence or my own system and setup, but this always feels very snappy. When I drag and drop, it's just very quick and easy to move the pieces into the different sections. A lot of different builders, you're like, okay, where does that space happen between the two different elements, and where do I drag and drop? But this one feels really good, really polished, like you would expect from a SaaS solution. Okay, so I've dragged all of my different elements into my container here, and I can select each individual one to access all the styling on the right. All pretty self-explanatory there. But let me show you also another new feature. I mentioned that these columns being nested was new. Let me show you another new one that came out last week, which is the ability to take an element like, let's say, a button. You used to be forced to drop it inside of a row, but now I can drop this anywhere on the page I want. Let's say I just drop it down here at the very, very bottom, not in any section. Upon doing so, now the element, which is the orange color here, automatically gets added into a column, which automatically gets added into a row, which automatically gets added into a section. So HighLevel forces the hierarchy. I think that's something that I haven't said yet. You are forced into this hierarchy of having a section, a row, a column, even if it's one single column, and then your element. Do take note that you cannot just drag columns on the left-hand side here. You will inevitably be dragging rows, and rows will contain columns even when you nest them. You can see here there's this blue color here on the right. Inside of my nested columns here, there is this blue, and then there's that blue right there. That's the row with 2 columns inside the row with 2 columns. So just bear in mind there is that hierarchy, and it won't take you long to figure it out. I do like this change where now we can just drag elements, and if it needs to create hierarchy, it will. So the next two things I want to talk about are typography and colors. I get a lot of questions about these two things. So I want to draw your attention here to this bar of icons to the right of where we've been clicking Add Element and accessing our layers. When I click on typography, a nice little tray slides out, and you can choose the headline font, the content font, text color, and link color, which are going to be for the page that you're on. So for example, let's say that I want my font not to be Montserrat. I want it to be, let's just say Roboto. Upon changing it to Roboto, notice this font here, everything for the headline font changes. I can change it to Open Sans, you notice it changed, or I can change it back to Roboto. That's because if I select on my headline font here, and I go into my right-hand side, under General, Typography, see where it says Typography Font? I've chosen Headline Font, which means I've chosen to inherit the page's headline font. My content font, if I selected content font, would inherit what I have selected as my content font. And custom font would mean I can just change this specific header just here to a different font, to any different font using Google Fonts that I want to. So the same holds true for everything, including bullet points. So for example, my bullet points are pulling in my headline font. That's kind of weird. I'll change them to my content font, and then I'll be able to adjust the font size to whatever I want it to be, and it looks a little bit more natural. Now let's talk about colors. Let's go ahead and go back to typography, and you can see our text color here. I can change this to something obvious like red. The text color is going to affect every bit of text. So that's something to bear in mind, and I'm going to show you how to make some adjustments to the colors in a second. But let's open up that color tray again really quickly here. I have access to my brand colors that I've set at the brand level inside of my sub account. I also have access to the default colors for HighLevel, and I can add custom colors. When adding custom colors, this is very similar to how you would do it in something like Thrive and many other tools in WordPress, also many other page builders for different SaaS solutions as well. So I could create a custom color here, like 28273F, which is a headline color that I like to use, and I can give it a name. I'll click out of that to lock it in and click Save. And now you can see, well, it actually already lined up with one of my brand colors, but I have my Convology heading color down here at the bottom that I can select between. So if I changed it to this secondary blue color, I could change it back instantly to my custom color, and these get saved. And then on the right-hand side, let's keep our heading selected. I can come down here to the color section, and I can select from that same palette of colors. I have my brand colors, my defaults, and my customs. So when doing so at this level, I'm changing the individual elements colors. And this is very similar. This works with buttons as well. So when you have a button on the page, actually I do, so I'll just show you. I can change the background color. There's that custom color again, or I can make it this blue. And it's going to change the elements right here. Pretty simple. So you can change background color. Color is the color of the font. It's just the common phrasing there. So that's the background color, and then subtext color if you turn it on. I just have a couple other things I want to show you before we wrap this up. First one, and I get this question a lot on any tool that people are using, is mobile editing. So really easy here. In the top of the screen here, you have a picture of a desktop and a picture of a mobile. Let's look at my headline as an example. The headline font size on desktop is set to 35. If I swap it to mobile, make sure my same headline's selected, font size is 42. So you can see already that you can have different settings on mobile and on desktop. Furthermore, next to each of the different settings here, let's look at font weight. See a little picture of the mobile phone next to basically all these settings? You can do a drop down and you can select the different device and it swaps all of them over. So it's basically another quick little way to jump between whether you're on mobile or desktop. So here we can make any changes that we want. And for the most part, anything that has the device next to it. And the reason I think it's actually there is so that you know, okay, changing this setting here will be reflected individually on devices. But let's look at one like typography type, no device next to it, which means if I change this to content font and I swap to desktop, notice it doesn't change. This is going to be the same across mobile and desktop. So that's a quick little cheat sheet way of seeing what's going to be different on each individual device. Now here at the top here in the upper left-hand corner, I want to go over a couple of these little sections. If you need to add tracking code to your page, maybe for Google ads, Facebook ads, maybe you have like a widget you want to embed just on the page, you can have header and tracking scripts here, put your JavaScript in. Then we have the custom CSS, the one that looks like a paintbrush. If you needed to make some custom CSS tweaks on the page level, you would just drop it in right here. And then there's the background, little 3 circles overlapping. You can have a background image on your whole site, or you can have a background color. Easy way to swap the entire page. And then if you had a button that did pop-up settings, it's like a built-in modal per page. So if you selected your button and your action for your button was to open up the modal, so I'll scroll down on the button here to find button actions where it says open pop-up. This is a built-in pop-up. You get one per page. You basically customize and add stuff into it. Customize the way it looks here on the right-hand side. Pretty cool, built right into the tool. And then we've got our SEO metadata here, where you can add in your title and description. I'll talk more about this in another video, but just to put any minds at ease, you have all of the same means and opportunity for ranking websites, funnels, pages, whatever you build in the HighLevel builder as you do on a WordPress website. And last little icon we'll go over here on the top here is the cookie consent. You have a nice little cookie consent banner that you can add right to each individual page. So rather than needing to go get a cookie consent tool, you can literally just enable it per page. And then you can customize the way it looks if you want to. And you can determine literally like region settings. So like only show it in the EU and UK. And then you can decide under the cookie list what cookies you want to essentially allow them to turn on and off. It's actually a fully functional cookie consent banner, which is awesome because most of them aren't actually real. And then if you want to switch pages, something I absolutely love about the HighLevel page builder here is the page section here, top middle or in the upper left, there's a page icon. You can just swap between your pages in like real time, like instantly swap between them versus having to like go back to WordPress, open up the different page you want to edit one page at a time. Here you can just swap between pages and do all your edits. It's super fast. It's really, really cool. I just want to highlight they have version control, which is awesome. And then they have the ability to save and publish. Now, the button that you need to push is the save icon. You should always be hitting the save icon. You can also turn on right here, you can turn on auto saving. If you like that, turn that on as well. The publish button and the save button do not do the same thing. If I hit the publish button, it's going to come up and say, well, what domain do you want to publish it to? For example, in some cases, we'll save changes you make on the page, but this button for sure, the little disk icon, will always save what's been done to the page. Good example, if you make your cookie banner and you customize it fully and you stylize it and you think you hit publish and you save all your settings, it doesn't do a thing. You have to hit the save icon. That's the most blatant example that I've seen. Now, the last thing I do want to talk about as we wrap this page builder tutorial or walkthrough up is the concept of saved sections. Sections are what you can save. So when we select the section that we want to save, you're going to look for this little disk icon. When you click on it, you're going to get 3 different options. Let me explain these to you very quickly. The universal section is brand new. With a section template, you can save your content as a template, drop it on a page to reuse it anywhere, and make changes to it. And those changes will only be reflected in that instance of the template you dropped on the page. Global sections are the same, except they will change all instances of the saved global section. So if I dragged this section here on the page and I changed the headline, it would be reflected wherever the headline is used. Now here's the restriction on global sections. They only sync across this funnel or website. Let's say I was building a funnel. The global sections would be only used in the funnel that they were saved in. I could not take them to another funnel or even another website. A universal section is a section that you can have across websites, a funnel, different funnels, webinars, anywhere you can use the page builder, it gets reflected there. So in most cases, I would create universal sections over global sections because conceptually they're the same thing. Except universal saves it across the whole account level versus just the individual funnel that you're in. Very, very cool system. And then to access those saved sections that you have here, you just go open the elements tray, go to saved sections, and here they are. Section templates, global sections, universal sections. You can see I have quite a few of my section templates here. I've made various ones, various different pages that I can just literally click a button, drag onto the page, and boom, there's an FAQ that I made. Now, how does that differ from the pre-built sections? Well, the pre-built sections are official ones that HighLevel makes that you can come in here and you can just click and drag onto your page. So if you wanted to bring in, let's say, a welcome section and you liked the way it looked, you could literally just drag it to the top of your page, drop it in, and now you have a pre-built hero section on your website where you can customize it however you like. And there's quite a bit of them too, and they're regularly adding more. And I heard that they're going to be developing even more for you to be able to use. So super cool. And by the way, the mega menu headers here, don't sleep on these. These are awesome. So like if you wanted to add a header to your website, you could literally drag this piece in, grab the mega menu that you want to use, and look how easy this is to edit the mega menu. I'll probably do another video on mega menus or menu structure and how to make your menus save across different pages. I've already technically gone over that with the template use, so if you have been following along pretty closely, you should be able to figure that out on your own. But I'll do another video on that, but I just wanted you to know that that's where you could get access to mega menus without having to make one all on your own. All right, so I'm going to wrap the video up there. I know this was a long one, but I wanted to give you a complete initial look at the fundamentals of the HighLevel website funnel page builder experience so that you can see what's all included in this. What features do you have available to you? Can you use this builder instead of another one? And I'll have plenty more videos coming. I'm going to go ahead and link them down below in the description for you to check out. And if you're looking for which video I recommend you watch next, I definitely recommend you watch this one.